House of EdTech, Episode 42.
Hi, this is Katrina Keene, Instructional Technology Consultant and Director of Innovation at Canterbury School, Fort Myers, and you're listening to the House of EdTech with Chris Nesi.
This episode of House of EdTech is brought to you in part by todaysmeet.com. Have you considered adding backchanneling to your classroom? Check out todaysmeet.com/houseofedtech to learn more about how you can add Today's Meet's awesome new Teacher Tools feature. You can now access your transcripts forever. You can pause the conversation. You now have a new high level of access control for your Today's Meet chat rooms, and it now offers an awesome, simple way to mute the unruly students. Add backchanneling to your classroom today with Today's Meet, and by HelpHub.me. HelpHub.me is the internet's premier online tutoring marketplace. Share your knowledge with the world, and you can make a little bit of money too. So check out HelpHub.me and start teaching the world. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Christopher Nesi, and the House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objectives include discussing technology that is changing our classrooms and schools and sharing tools and tips that you can hear about today and use tomorrow. I talk to teachers, leaders, and creators like you and have them share their stories. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn. And welcome back inside the House of EdTech as I continue my end of summer series, the Dog Days of Summer. And this is part 2. And, wow, summer's almost over. But before summer ends, we have a lot of things that we can do here in the podcast. Coming up in this episode, I have an EdTech thought, my EdTech recommendation, and of course, the House of EdTech VIP. But as I said just a couple of seconds ago, I am right in the middle of the dog days of summer. As I record this episode on Saturday, August 15th, baby Nesi number 2 has not yet arrived. But I am really sure that he is going to be here before I release episode 43 at the end of this month on, I believe, August 30th is the last day of, August 30th will be episode number 43. What else is going on here at the end of the summer? The kitchen is finally complete. Yesterday, on August 14th, my new appliances arrived, my new stove oven and my dishwasher, and I got those things installed. And there will be, of course, some updated pictures in the show notes for this episode. And I'm also going to link to a blog post that my wife Caitlin wrote over on her website, which is katenesi.com, Kate, of course, Nesi. And she wrote a blog post on her website about the fact that it cost us less than $5,000 to remodel and renovate our kitchen. And when I say we, of course, I'm a good husband, and I mean me. So for less than $5,000, I was able to gut and renovate and redo our entire kitchen. So you can click the link in the show notes, or you can head over to katenesi.com to check out her blog post about how we did that. I also want to remind you that there is still time to get me your back-to-school tip and recommendation that I'd like to assemble and include in the next episode, number 43 of the podcast. You can get me your tips by using the House of EdTech feedback line, and that number is 732-903-4869. You can also send me your tip on Voxer. My username is Mr. Nesi. Or you can click the SpeakPipe button on chrisnesi.com. Or you can just email me an MP3 that you record on your computer. Now, I've gotten a few, but there is still plenty of room for more tips as I assemble them for the upcoming 43rd episode of the podcast, which is going to kind of close out the summer and get the school year started as we go into the 2015-2016 school year. And speaking of feedback, I'm going to play for you in a second. I got some more feedback from ISTE 2015, and this bit of feedback about what the person learned at ISTE comes from Greg Bagby, hashtag the Greg on Twitter. Real quick, let me set this up. Greg is a principal from Tennessee, and of course he's going to be sharing some ISTE 2015 feedback when I play the clip in a minute. You can follow Greg on Twitter. He is at Greg Bagby, GregBagby. He blogs on his blog/website, which is gregbagby.blogspot.com. And take it away, the Greg, with what you learned at ISTE.
You have one new message.
Hello, Mr. Nesi. This is Greg Bagby, and my thoughts from ISTE to give to you were I was very thankful for the face-to-face, as most folks have said, the meetups and the conversations. Most thankful for meetups with folks that I've been Twitter chatting with for the last year and a half or so. It was great to actually sit down and have a conversation over a cup of tea or a sandwich or a beverage and just talk about what we're doing in technology across the U.S. And I was thankful that the folks that were able to be there and the ones that were not, I was also thankful for the Not at ISTE hashtag so they could still be in the conversation and enjoy the pictures of the folks that were at ISTE. So it's all about face-to-face. Well, not all, but it helps a whole lot. So have a great day and have an amazing show.
Greg, first, thank you for submitting your audio feedback. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. And I can't agree with you anymore. Face-to-face was my big takeaway from ISTE as well, and the opportunity to actually meet so many people who I talked to or have heard of was phenomenal, top-notch, and it's actually a priority of mine at things I've attended since then and will attend in the future to really fortify those personal relationships and really take advantage of the opportunity to meet people who are making a difference in my own learning and helping to shape my career. So I agree with you, Greg. And thank you again for sending in that feedback. Also, for you listening, Greg is also a podcaster. He is a part of a really great new up-and-coming podcast called the EDU Road Trip Podcast, which can be found at eduroadtrip.blogspot.com. And he is part of a three-headed monster of hosts. He hosts the show with Justin Birkbickler, who I've mentioned here on the show and has submitted feedback in the past, and a wonderful, wonderful teacher, Ms. Mari Venturino. Justin, Mari, and Greg produce the Edu Road Trip podcast, and I'm subscribed. You should be too. And when you think about it, that's kind of like a free House of EdTech recommendation. So make sure you check out Greg, check out Justin, check out Mari, and be sure to check out and subscribe to their podcast, the EDU Road Trip. Also in the news since the last episode came out, in case you missed it, Twitter has eliminated the 140 character limit for direct messages. I know, we're all waiting for us to be able to send emails on Twitter, I guess. I'm not. I'm a big fan of the regular 140 character tweet limit. I'm cool with that. But for DMs, you now have 10,000 characters that you can compose a direct message with. So get your emojis loaded. And this news actually came to me from Engadget.com, Engadget, and I will link to the full post that has some more information and other links and some cool things. But that's basically the highlight, that you can now send up to 10,000 characters inside of a direct message. And one last thing before I get to my EdTech thought for this episode, I have an Education Podcast Network update. I'm really pleased to announce that Jennifer Gonzalez, who produces the Cult of Pedagogy podcast, has joined the Education Podcast Network. Here is the description of the Cult of Pedagogy podcast, as it's presented in iTunes by Jennifer. And it says, quote, teaching strategies, classroom management, education reform, educational technology. If it has something to do with teaching, we're talking about it. On the podcast, I interview educators, students, administrators, and parents about the psychological and social dynamics of school, trade secrets, and other juicy things you'll never learn in a textbook. Other episodes feature me, and me as Jennifer, on my own, offering advice on ways to make your teaching more effective and more fun. End quote. You need to check out the Cult of Pedagogy. You can go to cultofpedagogy.com/pod, P-O-D, for access to all of her back catalog. She's been podcasting since 2013, and she's got quite a number of episodes which cover an awesome range of topics, all related to education that I think you would enjoy. You can connect with her and the show on Twitter. The Twitter name is Cult of Pedagogy, and I will link to that in the show notes. Make sure you subscribe to Cult of Pedagogy today, and also be sure to rate and review her podcast, as I recommend you do this show and any podcast you listen to. Podcast ratings and reviews are so valuable to us as podcasters, and Jennifer will find them valuable too. So make sure after you subscribe and you've listened to and enjoyed a few of her episodes, go to iTunes, rate and review her podcast, and let her know how much you appreciate what she's doing and the content that she is creating. And of course, for more great podcasts created by educators for you, an educator, go check out the great lineup of podcasts on the Education Podcast Network over at edupodcastnetwork.com. That's enough news. Now, let's get into my EdTech thought. My current EdTech thought I am calling The Value of Summertime Professional Development. This comes from a recent blog post I posted over on my website, and I'd like to share it with you here. I am more than halfway through my summer vacation, and this summer, more than ever, has afforded me some great opportunities. First, I continue to learn every day by being a connected educator, harnessing the power of Twitter for my anytime and anywhere professional development. Honestly, I'm a little addicted to checking Twitter and getting involved in the vast amount of conversations taking place at any given moment. One of the ways I am harnessing Twitter is as a co-moderator of the weekly #PodcastPD chat that takes place on Sunday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The chat is 30 minutes and 2 questions all about podcasting and education. I am fortunate to be able to work and collaborate on the chat with Stacy Lindis and AJ Bianco, who are at the top of my professional learning network list. There is tremendous value in getting together on a regular basis to talk about something I am passionate about with people who are like-minded and share my passions. Along those same lines, this podcast, The House of EdTech, continues to be the golden child of my learning. Creating a podcast has really pushed me forward in my thinking, as well as how I approach education and education technology integration. Creating the podcast alone has opened new doors for creating in areas of audio production, graphic design, as well as things like social media marketing and website design. In terms of the podcast, this doesn't even consider the actual content of each episode, where I'm talking with people who are so knowledgeable and have a great story to share about their own learning and their experiences and stories. Earlier this year, I also started the Education Podcast Network, and have pulled together some of the best educational podcasts out there so educators have a place to discover valuable content that can impact their teaching as well as the education world. I've also been on a tear the last year giving presentations about podcasting and the power that one can wield with a microphone. The power of podcasting is no joke, and whether you want to do it for yourself or with your students, your school, or your district, there is no better time than now to jump in, and as I like to say, #JustHitRecord. My conference attendance during the summer has also proved to be so worthwhile as I move forward in my career. Too many educators make it clear that summer is a time not to do anything related to school or learning, and that's a shame and a tragedy. We wouldn't want our doctors to pass up learning about a new technique, or our lawyer to not stay current on the latest statutes. Why do teachers, and not all, but why do some teachers lower the bar for continued learning? I had the opportunity to attend ISTE, Ed Camp Leader in North Jersey, and I got involved in the planning of Ed Camp Jersey Shore. I'm thankful and excited that Caitlin will give birth to baby Nesi number 2 before the new school year begins. But if that weren't the case, I would have also had the opportunity to spend the day at Google in New York, attend Teach Meet New Jersey down at Stockton University in New Jersey, and gone to at least one Coffee EDU event. Why? Because I crave new information and learning opportunities that will make me a better educator. If I can improve, then I can help others improve as well. I share a common view with Jeff Bradbury that if you're in the classroom, you can impact 150 to 175 students a year. If you're an administrator, you can impact 500 to 1,000 students or more, so principal, superintendent, etc. And if you're teaching teachers and leading, your reach and impact can be even more far-reaching. That's why I do the things I do. Now, vacation will be coming to a close, or has closed as the school year is upon us for some of you, and like me in September. So I ask you, what will you do to continue to grow? What will you do to continue to lead? That's my EdTech thought. And now for this episode's EdTech recommendation. It's time to get your class and your students tweeting. This recommendation I am taking from Alice Keeler, because I read an awesome blog post along the same lines of getting your class tweeting over on her website, alicekeeler.com. And what the blog post is about in the recommendation is obviously at its core to get your students tweeting during the school year and have your students use their voice and compose tweets and share that information out. Now, Alice is like the guru of all things Google Docs and spreadsheets, and she shared a great resource about how to have your students compose tweets, and then you as the teacher can share those out. Now, what is the value of having your kids tweet? You can have them tweet pictures, questions, and follow interesting people. Now, to quote the blog post, quote, "Students tweeting. Most likely you are not going to have your students create Twitter accounts to tweet from class. Instead, use the class Twitter account to allow students to do the tweeting. Do not give students the class Twitter account password. Instead, Alice has created this spreadsheet to facilitate class tweeting. And this awesome spreadsheet can be found at tinyurl.com/tweetmyclass. And on the spreadsheet, students can come in and compose their tweet in column A. In column B, they can put their name, and then column C automatically calculates the number of characters that the tweet is taking up. Column D is a place you could put your class hashtag, and then what you will do is you will get a link that you as the teacher can click, and then your Twitter window or your tweet composing window will open, and then you can send the tweet, and it will take the format of, for example, let's say it's the first day of school and Joey wants to send the tweet from the class. So it'll say, "We're really enjoying the first day of school via Joey," and your class hashtag. And that's really cool. So I've included a link to the full blog post from Alice Keeler and a link to this awesome spreadsheet that will automatically prompt you to make a copy of, and it's all set up and ready to go. So as we get the school year underway, consider, I guess, adding a class Twitter account. And when you do that, use this as a tool to get your kids involved in the tweeting. And now it's time for the highly outrageous and always exciting House of EdTech VIP. Congratulations to Miss Tina Monteleone. Tina is a former pre-K teacher turned instructional technology coach and adjunct professor. She's a certified Google educator who is very active as a professional development presenter, and she's presented on a number of awesome topics. Two that I would like to share with you that are linked to in the show notes. One presentation is titled Striving for Success in Special Education, which you can get to by going to tinyurl.com/SSINSE and iPads in the Classroom, which can be found at tinyurl.com/EdisonIPads. Two awesome presentations that I worked through and got some cool tips from. Tina is also the newly elected co-director of NJASCD North, and you can connect with Tina, as I recommend that you do, on Twitter. Her username is Tina Monte, TinaMonte. You can email Tina at tinamonte13, that's the number 13, teachingislearning@gmail.com. And you can check out her website and blog at teachingislearning.edublogs.org. And there's a link to all of that in the show notes. It's been a pleasure to meet Tina at a number of educational events here in New Jersey over the last year. I know she listens to the podcast, so I thank her for that, and connect with her today and start learning from her as I have. Congratulations, Tina. You are a House of EdTech VIP. And that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the House of EdTech. Once again, this episode was supported by todaysmeet.com and helphub.me. For more information about backchanneling, be sure to check out todaysmeet.com/houseofedtech. And if you're interested in becoming an online tutor and making a little extra money to start the school year or during the school year, obviously you need to check out helphub.me. Keep the conversation going. Visit the website, check out the show notes over at chrisnesi.com. Once again, this is episode number 43, The Dog Days of Summer, Part 2. And I would love your thoughts on the information and resources shared in this episode. You can leave a comment on the show notes, or you can email the email for the show, feedback@chrisnesi.com, CHRISNESI.com. And you can also submit audio feedback by calling the House of EdTech listener feedback line. The number is 732-903-4869. And you can connect with me on Voxer. My username is, of course, Mr. Nesi. And you can connect with me on Twitter. The username is also Mr. Nesi. And just use the hashtag House of EdTech so I see those tweets. Now, if you enjoy the podcast, and I know you do because you're listening to it, please rate and review the podcast on iTunes. I say it all the time, your 5-star ratings and your positive reviews help keep the podcast front and center for other people to discover and enjoy. You can also show your support through patreon.com, and you can go to patreon.com/houseofedtech, just as Jeff Herb from Instructional Tech Talk and instructionaltechtalk.com has done. Thank you, Jeff, for your patronage. I really appreciate it. I'll be releasing episode number 43. I guess we're going to call this the Dog Days of Summer Part 3, the big back-to-school episode. And episode number 43 will be released on August 30th, 2015. As always, thank you for listening. And remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try. The House of EdTech is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. The Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more, go to edupodcastnetwork.com.